I stood in front of his oversized walnut desk, the resignation letter in my hand, perfectly creased, no emotion on my face. He looked so pleased with himself. He actually laughed. "Elliot," he said, drawing it out slow and condescending, "at your age, good luck finding another job in tech." He chuckled again, shaking his head like he was giving me fatherly advice. I didn't move. I didn't blink. "My name is Elliot Warren. I'm 52 years old. Senior systems architect. 20 years in this company. 20 years making sure the system stayed stable, the policies stayed tight, and the executives could keep promising the world. I wrote the compliance manuals most of them never bothered to read. I trained the new hires who always seemed surprised someone my age could explain emerging frameworks better than their textbooks. I spent my evenings documenting every fix, every refinement, every optimization no one else understood. And in all that time, he never learned a single line of it. He was still laughing. "Come on, Elliot." He smirked. "What's in the envelope?" "A resignation. You know, nobody wants to hire old code monkeys." I placed it on his desk, slowly, carefully. "Effective immediately, I resign my position as senior systems architect. See attached clause 7.4 for terms governing IP separation." He stopped grinning when he read it. He looked up at me, confused. "Clause 7.4, the hell is that supposed to mean?" I didn't say anything. I reached into my battered canvas bag. I pulled out the second document, clean print, company, letterhead, bright red, sign stamp. I laid it down. "Your signature." He picked it up like it smelled bad. "You're really going to try to threaten me with paperwork?" he scoffed. His tone was changing. I didn't respond. He scanned it, slowly. I could see the moment he understood. He swallowed. "You're bluffing," he tried. I tilted my head just slightly. "Read it again," I said, my voice flat. He did. "All personal research notes, development documentation, and self-directed prototypes remain the property of the originating employee, if created outside billable hours or designated corporate project scope." He looked up, face pale. "You wrote this?" "Yes, 3 years ago, during the company's security compliance audit. He had wanted an airtight IP policy. He had told me, I don't care how boring it is, make it bulletproof. I don't have time to read it. So I made sure it was bulletproof. For everyone, including me." "You're 52, he said again, voice rising. "You really think another company wants you? You think Quantum Dynamics is going to hire someone your age who's threatening legal clauses?" I didn't react. I thought about explaining it to him. How Quantum Dynamics didn't want my old work, they wanted me. My process, my experience, my understanding of a system he couldn't describe in a single sentence. But I didn't bother. He wouldn't get it. He never had. Instead I said, "I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you. These materials are mine. The clause you signed makes that clear. I'm taking them with me." His jaw worked like he was chewing something sour. "You're stealing proprietary IP." "No," I said, calm, even. "I'm executing separation under company policy. The one you approved. The one you insisted be thorough." He was silent. For the first time since I'd walked in, he didn't have a comeback. The only sound was the faint hum of the office HVAC. Outside, the city looked gray and exhausted. He tried one more time, leaning forward, dropping his voice like we were old friends. "Elliot, come on, don't do this. Don't throw away 20 years over this clause." I lifted my bag. 20 years, I repeated softly. Then I shook my head. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm taking what's mine." At the door, I paused. "By the way," I added, my voice as mild as ever, "you might want to read clause 7.4 again before you talk to legal." He didn't say anything, just stared at the paper in front of him like it was some ancient curse. I turned away, walking slowly down the hallway where I had spent 2 decades being dependable, invisible, safe. Past the plaques with his name on them for my work. Past the conference rooms where I'd taught concepts he'd pretended to understand. My steps were steady, deliberate. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even satisfied yet. I was simply ready. If you've ever seen someone dismissed for their age, treated like their best years were behind them, hit that subscribe button. This isn't the story of a man getting even. It's the story of a man finally being honest. Let me tell you how it got here. They always want to believe you lost your temper, that you snapped one day. Too proud to adapt, too old to learn, too sensitive to be managed. That you slammed the door behind you without a plan. It's comforting for them. Because the truth is worse. The truth is that men like me don't snap. We decide. We plan. We execute. It didn't start in his office with that letter. It started 18 months before, at the company's annual holiday party. You know, the kind muted jazz trio in the corner. Terrible lighting to make the theme look sophisticated. HR-approved cocktails with puns for names. Assigned seating so management wouldn't have to make small talk with staff. I was by the dessert table, my club soda sweating in my hand. That was my scene for the evening, not really there, not really absent. Listening, always listening. That's when I heard Victor, my boss, my vice president, standing with the board chair laughing too loud for the setting. "You really think I don't know why we're successful," he was saying, voice smug. He held up his glass like a trophy. "Because I've got the old compliance guy on a leash. Elliot. He's 52. He's terrified of losing his pension. He'll do anything I say. He doesn't even realize how replaceable he is." He actually laughed at his own joke. He added, waving his drink, "Half the crap he documents is just make-work to feel important. You want loyalty? Fear buys loyalty." They clinked glasses. I didn't interrupt. Didn't confront him. Didn't let my face change. Instead, I just stood there, letting the words file themselves away, sorting them like data in my mind. That was the exact moment I decided. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even disappointment. It was clarity. That loyalty wasn't mutual. That my diligence was valuable only so long as I stayed silent. That 20 years of building airtight systems of making sure no one could burn this place down only mattered to him because he could take credit for it. I finished my drink, set the glass down next to a plate of untouched petit fours, walked out without saying goodbye. That night I sat at my kitchen table with my work laptop open. No distractions, no TV, no music. I opened a blank document, typed a single line at the top in bold. "What is mine to take?" Underneath it I started listing my private notes, my methodologies, my personal logs, my optimization tests coded on weekends, the clause I'd written myself during the compliance overhaul. That list became my insurance policy, my proof, my quiet promise to myself that the truth wouldn't be lost. My wife found me there past midnight. She asked if everything was okay. I told her yes, that I just needed to clean up a few things at work. She didn't push. 23 years of marriage had taught her when I was thinking, really thinking. In the weeks that followed, I didn't act any different. Didn't come in late. Didn't skip meetings. Didn't let him see a single crack. If anything, I was even more dependable. Caught more errors. Stayed later. Wrote better documentation. Privately, I kept expanding the list. Reviewed every process document. Marked what was personal development versus billable work. Flagged anything I'd built on my own time. Saved every email where I explained concepts he'd later present as his own. I added everything. I remembered something my first boss once told me. Revenge is best served with documentation. So I documented. I didn't plan to sabotage him. Didn't want to destroy the company. That wasn't my goal. I just wanted clarity. Proof. Because I knew when the day came, he'd try to say I stole from him. That I owed him everything. That I was just some old engineer who couldn't keep up. But I had the receipts. I sat in meetings watching him promise the moon to clients, smiling like the emperor of tech, quoting buzzwords he didn't understand, presenting my slides stripped of attribution, saying we're implementing hybrid optimization like he'd ever read the math. And I sat there, writing, adding to the list, not angry, just methodical. Because here's the thing, I didn't hate him. That would have required respecting him enough to feel betrayed. Instead, I understood him. He loved the shine, but didn't care how it was polished. He thought silence meant stupidity. He thought old meant obsolete. He never realized I heard everything. That I remembered everything. That designing systems was my life's work. And that he was just another system to map. A flawed one. Predictable. Vulnerable. So no, I didn't snap. I made a plan. If you know someone who's had their work dismissed or their loyalty mocked, share this video with them. Because this isn't about rage. It's about remembering. And planning. They always noticed how quiet I was. I didn't tell jokes at meetings. Didn't fight for credit in brainstorms. Didn't network at happy hours. They called it humility, but it wasn't. It was observation. For 20 years, I was the quiet one in the room. I watched systems break. Watched new hires cut corners. Watched management demand results they didn't understand. And I wrote everything down. When you're silent, people show you who they are. They assume you're harmless. They talk freely in front of you. They forget you're there. That was my specialty. Being forgettable. I wasn't the rock star engineer. I was the one who fixed things at 11 p.m. so the team wouldn't get embarrassed in front of the client. The one who remembered the old compliance clauses when legal panicked. The one who wrote the new policy draft because no one else wanted to read the old one. They thought I was just old, reliable Elliot. I let them. The day I was promoted to senior systems architect, Victor shook my hand and said, "Just keep the trains running. Don't worry about the big ideas. That's my job." He grinned like he'd said something charming. I nodded and went back to my desk. That was our entire relationship. He made promises. I made them true. He pitched revolutionary frameworks. I stayed up 3 nights in a row implementing them so they wouldn't fail in front of the client. He went to conferences. I wrote his slides. He bragged about our unique approach. I wrote the code. I didn't correct him. I didn't demand credit. I just kept documenting, because I understood the system. And I designed for failure modes. Not just technical ones. Human ones. People think system design is about code. It's not. It's about prediction. What will people do when they're lazy? What will they do when they're greedy? What will they do when they think no one's watching? So I watched Victor forget which algorithm we were even selling this quarter. Watched him nod in meetings pretending to understand. Watched him dismiss engineers who pushed back on scope. Watched him cut corners on audits because reading legal language was a waste of time. That's how I wrote Clause 7.4. 3 years before I resigned, the company had a minor data breach. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to scare the board into ordering a full security compliance overhaul. Victor panicked. He demanded I lead it. Not because he trusted me, because he didn't want to do it himself. He said, "Just make sure it's airtight, bulletproof. I don't have time to read any of it. Just make sure legal signs off." So I did. I sat in my home office for 3 weekends straight. I read every old policy. I documented every hole. I built a new IP section from scratch. And in that section I added Clause 7.4. All personal research notes, development documentation, and self-directed prototypes remain the property of the originating employee if created outside billable hours or designated corporate project scope. It wasn't a trap. It was insurance. For everyone. Because I knew damn well they'd expect free labor. That they'd demand ideas on my own time. That they'd see age and loyalty as permission to take. He signed it. Without reading it, legal signed it too. Because it was so clean. So precise. That clause sat there and the company policy ignored. Until I needed it. 20 years of silence wasn't complacency. It was design. I built my exit the same way I built systems. Redundant. Documented. Unbreakable. I kept copies of every policy draft in a folder no one touched. I archived version histories with every change. My logs weren't secrets. They were my lifeline. Because I'd seen what they did to people who left without a plan. Watched them sue old colleagues for stealing IP they didn't even understand. Watched them blackball engineers with whispered phone calls. I wasn't going to be one of them. I wasn't going to fight for scraps of credit in meetings. I was going to take everything that was mine. On my terms. I remember a junior developer once asked me why I was so quiet in code reviews. "Don't you want them to know you're smart?" he said. I shrugged. Smart isn't saying it. Smart is making sure they can't ignore it when it matters. He laughed at the time. Thought I was being cryptic. He didn't get it. Victor never got it either. He thought the system was for him. But I wrote the system, and I wrote my way out. If you've ever felt invisible at work, if you've ever watched someone take credit for your silence, hit that subscribe button. Because this isn't about making noise. It's about making sure the record is there when it matters. It didn't happen overnight. I didn't just walk in one day with a box and say I quit. That would have been dramatic, messy, risky. I'm not that kind of man. I don't do messy. I do thorough. After that night at the holiday party, I started quietly collecting everything. Every proof, every receipt, every line of code I'd written on my own time. Every version control commit stamped at 2:13 a.m. on a Sunday. Every email where I explained an idea to Victor in small words so he could pitch it at the board meeting the next day. I didn't hide it. I organized it. I opened new folders in my personal cloud storage, labeled meticulously. Personal research notes, non-billable optimization tests, after hours, policy drafts, authored explained concepts, email archive. I didn't want plausible deniability. I wanted documented truth. He had always been sloppy. He thought the company owned everything. He thought saying this is company time was a magic spell that turned my brain into their property. But I knew the policy. I wrote it. I also knew how audits worked, how lawyers read. They didn't want drama. They wanted evidence. Clear, ordered, time-stamped. So I made sure it was there. Every time I finished a personal experiment at 11 p.m. at my kitchen table, I logged the time, backed it up, saved the iterations, added notes, not for current client deliverable, exploratory. When Victor asked me to make it work for a pitch he didn't understand, I sent him an email. Victor, here's the simplified version of the optimization approach. Let me know if you want me to walk you through the math. Always polite, always offering to help, always leaving a record. He never replied to those emails, but he used my slides, my phrases, my diagrams. I kept copies of those too. My personal logs weren't a secret. I didn't password protect them from the company. I just labeled them honestly. Because I wasn't stealing. I was separating. He never noticed. Because he never looked. That was his weakness. He didn't respect the details. Didn't think they mattered. He thought being in the room, shaking hands, taking credit, that was leadership. That was ownership. I knew better. Ownership is proof. Ownership is the record. I spent those months being exactly what he wanted me to be. Quiet, reliable, invisible. If anything, I got even better at my job. Fewer errors in my code, cleaner documentation, faster responses to panicked requests from sales. He praised me in front of the team. That's why Elliot's our rock. He liked calling me our rock. He thought it meant he could stand on me. I let him. Every compliment went in the file too. Screenshotted. Time-stamped. Proof that he knew my value. I remember one meeting where he promised the client next-level optimization models before I'd even finished the prototype. I just sat there pen-tapping slowly on my notepad. Listening. Afterward, he came over, clapped me on the shoulder. "You'll make this happen, right? You always do." I nodded. "I'll send you the options." I did. In writing, with disclaimers about limitations. He never read them. That email went in the folder, too. Because I understood how this game ended. One day I'd refuse to just fix it, and he'd try to say I failed, that I was old, that I was slow, that I wasn't a team player. So I made sure the record said otherwise. I didn't need drama in the exit interview. Didn't need to shout. Didn't need to rage. I just needed the paper trail. I used to sit at my kitchen table at night, the glow of the screen lighting up the quiet room, clicking through folders one by one. Verifying, organizing, labeling. My wife would pass by, see me working, ask if I was all right. I'd nod, just making sure everything's in order. She didn't ask more. She knew me. She knew what that meant. It meant no surprises, no loopholes, no accusations I couldn't refute. It meant they wouldn't be able to spin it as me stealing company IP because every timestamp, every email, every policy clause would prove I hadn't. It meant when the day came, I'd be able to leave without permission. Because I wouldn't need permission. I'd have proof. Because this wasn't about trust. It was about preparation. You'd be surprised how easy it was to let him get comfortable. That's the thing about arrogance, it does most of the work for you. I didn't have to lie. I didn't even have to hide anything. I just had to stop correcting him. Victor liked to think he was the smartest man in every room. He believed that leadership meant making the bold promise and trusting his team to figure out how to deliver. He treated planning as someone else's problem. Details bored him. Footnotes were beneath him. He loved the show, standing in front of the board with slides he barely read, dropping industry jargon he didn't understand, grinning when investors nodded along, too impressed with the buzzwords to ask questions. I stopped offering to help him prep. Stopped asking if he wanted to review my talking points. Stopped sending the simplified explainers. He didn't even notice. He would barge into my office with half-formed ideas. We should position this as hybrid optimization with a predictive learning overlay. I'd look at him. Do you know what that means? He'd wave it off. That's your job. Make it real. So I did. But I made sure to keep my versions. My math. My real approach. The one he couldn't explain. He didn't want to learn. He wanted to sell. He'd say things like, "Our clients don't want the weeds. They want confidence." But the problem was confidence only carries you so far. Sooner or later, someone asks for the plan. He was sure that day would never come, because he believed he'd built a team that existed to protect him. And for a while, he wasn't wrong. I made sure his sales decks were clean. I corrected half-baked estimates before they hit the client. I quietly patched last-minute bugs at 2 a.m. so the demo wouldn't crash. I trained new engineers not to embarrass him in meetings. When legal flagged his contracts, I rewrote them. When finance panicked about audit readiness, I fixed it. When compliance needed the IP policy tightened, I drafted it. Clause 7.4 was right there. He signed it without reading it. He didn't see that as risk. He saw it as efficiency. That was the real flaw. He thought having someone like me was proof of his brilliance. I know how to hire good people, he'd brag. I just focus on the vision. He didn't notice that vision meant nothing if you couldn't explain it. That selling the future meant understanding the present. He never asked questions he didn't already know the answer to. He didn't want to look stupid, so he stayed ignorant. I watched all of this with the same calm I used when stress testing systems. Identifying failure points. Documenting them. Because that's what you do when you design for failure modes. One night, well after hours, I walked the empty office with the lights on motion sensors flicking on and off. His office door was ajar. I paused, looked inside. On his desk was a framed printout of a news article. Victor Thompson, the tech visionary revolutionizing optimization. My work behind his smile. I didn't get angry. I just noted it. I wrote it down in my notebook, underlined twice. That same week, he posted a long article on LinkedIn about leadership in tech. Not a single mention of the engineers. Not a single word about the real challenges. Just recycled quotes about hustle. The likes and comments flooded in. Brilliant insights. Love your vision. He called me into his office the next day. You see the engagement on my post. That's why people invest in us. I'm the face. You're the backbone. And that's how it should be. He said it like he was complimenting me. I nodded. Didn't argue. But that conversation went in my notes. Verbatim. Because here's the thing about systems. They don't fail because one piece breaks. They fail because you stop maintaining them. He stopped maintaining the trust. Stopped maintaining the knowledge. Stopped maintaining me. He thought paying my salary was enough. I didn't need to sabotage him. Didn't need to spread rumors. Didn't need to steal anything. I just needed to let the truth catch up. I watched him brag. I watched him relax. I watched him believe his own pitch. And all the while I was writing, documenting, organizing, making sure the record was complete. Because when the time came, I wouldn't have to raise my voice. I'd just have to show them the logs. I wasn't the only one watching. You spend long enough being the invisible man in the room and you forget the walls have eyes too. Competitors, vendors, industry insiders who could read between the lines when Victor made his big promises. It wasn't hard to see he didn't understand the technology. It wasn't hard to notice the slide decks were thin, that the Q&A sessions were rehearsed to the point of parody. What they didn't know was how much work went on behind those slides. Because I made sure no one did. Not even Victor. But companies talk. Vendors talk. Old colleagues who'd switched firms talked. And the whispers all circled around one thing. Whoever's actually building Teknova's optimization systems, they're the real asset. I never advertised myself. Didn't update my LinkedIn with grand titles. Didn't post about leadership philosophy. Didn't even have a professional headshot. Just the facts. Years of systems architecture. Focus on compliance. Quiet. Reliable. And that made some people very curious. The first time Quantum Dynamics reached out, I ignored them. Politely. A recruiter emailed me late one Thursday. We've heard excellent things about your design work. Would you be open to a conversation about joining our optimization team? I replied that I was happy where I was. Thank you. I wasn't lying. At the time, I wasn't ready. I was still collecting, still organizing, still making sure every clause was bulletproof. But they didn't give up. 3 months later, another email. We're very interested in someone with your approach to systems integrity and documentation. We're offering leadership opportunities. I didn't respond right away, but I didn't delete it either, because I understood what it meant. It meant they saw the cracks in Victor's act. They wanted to know who was really holding it together. I waited, watched Victor make more promises he couldn't keep. He loved talking about our next-gen optimization as if he'd even read my prototypes. He'd brag in meetings. This will revolutionize supply chain modeling. No one else is even close. He couldn't even describe how. That's when I got serious. I pulled out the second email from Quantum Dynamics and drafted a response. I appreciate the interest. Let's schedule a call. We talked the next week. A formal interview with their head of engineering, Dr. Priya Vasquez. No recruiters this time. No salespeople. Just her. She didn't waste time. We know you're the architect behind Teknova's models. We know you're not getting credit. We don't want your company's code. We want your mind. I didn't say yes. Not immediately. I asked questions. Who would I be working with? What level of autonomy? How seriously did they take compliance? Priya didn't sugarcoat anything. We're not interested in theft. We don't want to fight IP battles. We want cleanroom innovation. Your methods. Your vision. Built from scratch here. I believed her. Because she understood the stakes. She also didn't flinch when I told her about Clause 7.4. That's not a loophole, she said. That's a failsafe. You protected your work. I respect that. We spoke for over an hour. It was the first real technical conversation I'd had in years. No buzzwords. No empty hype. Just engineering. I hung up knowing I wasn't ready to accept. Not yet, but the seed was planted. Victor was busy posting more LinkedIn thought leadership. How to inspire your team to innovate. I copied the link into my notes. Because I was almost there. Almost ready to execute the plan I'd been refining for over a year. All I needed was the trigger. The moment he'd force me to make the choice. And of course, he delivered. He called an all-hands meeting. Grinned at the team. We're making big promises next quarter. I'm talking about guaranteeing clients a 30% optimization improvement over baseline. He winked at me like we were co-conspirators. You'll make that happen, right, Elliot? Like always. That's when I knew it was time. Because he wasn't just ignoring the work. He was committing me to an impossible lie. I didn't argue, didn't correct him in front of everyone. Just nodded. But that night I stayed late. Backed up every folder one more time. Verified every timestamp. Double-checked Clause 7.4. Made sure there was nothing sloppy. Nothing ambiguous. Then I went home. I typed my resignation letter slowly, reading every word twice. If you've ever seen someone commit you to promises they couldn't keep just because they thought you'd stay quiet, hit that subscribe button. Because this is what happens when you decide not to be their safety net anymore. I woke up at 5:00 a.m. that day, not because I couldn't sleep, but because I wanted time. Time to sit with it, to check everything one last time. I made coffee the old-fashioned way. Stovetop percolator. No rush. I opened my laptop and read the letter again. Line by line. No dramatic language. No accusations. Just fact. My title. My tenure. My resignation effective immediately. Attached Clause 7.4 in full text at the bottom. Not a threat. Not a negotiation. Just the policy as written. I printed 3 copies. Signed them in blue ink. My wife came into the kitchen around 6:15. She looked at me over her mug. Today? I nodded. She didn't say good luck. Didn't say, are you sure? After 23 years, she didn't have to. She just gave me a small, tired smile. I picked up my old canvas bag. Checked the contents. USB drives with backups. Copies of personal logs. Printed policy manuals. The signed resignation letter. No surprises. No loose ends. I left the house at 7, early enough to beat traffic. I didn't want to arrive late. The lobby was quiet when I walked in. Security gave me the usual nod. I scanned my badge one last time. Green light. Door click. Up the elevator to 42. I watched the numbers change. 1 floor at a time. No thoughts. No fear. Just process. When the doors opened, the office was half lit. Early staffers with coffees in hand. Some nodded at me. I nodded back. No one knew. No one suspected. I went straight to my office. Sat down. Booted up. I checked my email. Flagged a few for follow-up that wouldn't happen. I wasn't going to leave a mess. I packaged up the final version of documentation. Personal research removed. Company code clean. Deliverables organized. I sent it to the team distribution list. No note of goodbye. Just the files. That took 40 minutes. Because I wasn't sloppy, finally I picked up the envelope. Heavyweight paper. Clean print. 3 signatures. Clause 7.4 highlighted. I looked at the clock. 8:22 a.m. Victor wouldn't be in yet. He liked rolling in at 8:45 with an expensive coffee in hand. Making sure everyone saw him. I sat back in my chair. Stared at the door. Listened to the murmur of other engineers arriving. Chairs scraping. Screens flicking on. Part of me felt calm. Part of me felt old. 20 years? That's longer than some people stay married. I thought about every bug I fixed. Every audit I survived. Every slide I wrote for him. I remembered the holiday party. Him laughing about having me on a leash. That memory didn't make me angry anymore. It felt clinical. A data point. A root cause analysis. I checked the envelope one more time. Clause 7.4. His signature. Company letterhead. No dispute. It was my exit plan signed by the man himself. I stood. picked up my bag. My fingers brushed the canvas worn smooth over years. I walked out of my office without looking back. Down the hallway, past the framed awards with his name on them. Projects I'd saved from disaster. Systems I'd built from scratch. Ideas he'd pitched as his own. No one stopped me. No one even really noticed. I reached his door. It was closed. Of course. He was late. I sat in the guest chair outside. Rested the envelope in my lap. I rested it on my knee thumb, tapping the corner. Waited. I watched the clock tick. 8:45. 8:47. 8:49. He arrived at 8:51. Designer coat. Expensive leather briefcase. Venti coffee in hand. He didn't see me at first. Too busy smiling at the receptionist. Making sure she saw the brand logo on his sleeve. Then he looked up. Saw me sitting there. Paused. Smirked. Elliot. Early as always. Good to see you. He glanced at the envelope in my lap. What's that reports leave it on my desk? I'll get to it. I didn't move. Actually, Victor, I said quietly. We should talk. He frowned. Confused. Then annoyed. I've got a call in 5. Can it wait? I shook my head once. No. Because after 20 years of cleaning up his messes, I wasn't giving him 5 more minutes. He stared at me like he couldn't figure out the punchline. That was Victor's move. Act confused. Act annoyed that you didn't understand the unspoken hierarchy. I said, leave it on my desk. He shifted his coffee to his other hand, impatient. I didn't move. This isn't a report, I said. I held up the envelope. Heavy paper. My signature. Clause 7.4 bolted in the header. He squinted at it, then at me. Elliot, what is this? I'm late. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't hurry. It's my resignation. Effective immediately. The words hung in the hallway. Dead quiet. He blinked. Frowned. Snorted once dismissive. You're joking. Very funny. I didn't answer. I watched him read my face. Watched the confusion spread. Victor wasn't used to people saying no. Especially not me. Elliot. Be serious. We have a client pitch next week. You're the one who knows the numbers. He gave me that patronizing smile. Look, if you want a raise, we can talk. I didn't smile back. It's not about money. That threw him. Because in his world, everything was about money. Then what you're mad about the hours, about credit, Jesus, Elliot, you know how this works. I waited. Let him sputter. He dropped the smile. Narrowed his eyes. You're really doing this. Now without notice. I handed him the envelope. He didn't take it at first. Just stared at it like it was something rotten. Then he snatched it. Ripped it open. Skimmed the first lines. Slower when he hit clause 7.4. His lips moved as he read. What the hell is this? I didn't answer. I let him read it again. He looked up. Angry now? This is bullshit. You can't just take your work. Actually, I said calm as ever, company policy says I can. He glared. I'm not letting you walk out with proprietary data. That's theft. I pointed at the clause. His signature at the bottom. Personal research. Personal logs. Non-billable hours. Fully documented. Protected. Signed policy. He went pale. Because even he couldn't argue with his own signature. I could see it dawning on him. All those nights he told me, just make sure legal signs off. All those audits I saved him from. All the times he waved me off because he was too busy. Elliot, he tried, voice softer now. Let's not do this. Let's talk. You've been here 20 years. I nodded. Exactly. He swallowed. Set his coffee down too hard on the credenza behind him. Coffee splashed onto the expensive leather. He didn't even notice. We can work something out, he tried again. Title change. More responsibility? I'll make sure you get credit. Hell, you want to present next time? Fine. It would have been funny if it wasn't so sad. He actually thought it was fixable. This isn't about credit, I said. It's about accountability. He blinked. Didn't know what to do with that. I trusted you, he said finally, voice shaking a little. I depended on you. I let that sit. Because it was true. And because that was exactly the problem. I know, I said. That's why this hurts you. He just stood there. Silent. Coffee dripping down the side of his bag. I didn't say goodbye. Didn't offer to shake his hand. Didn't thank him for the opportunity. I turned. Walked back down the hall. Past the engineers pretending not to watch. Past the framed motivational posters about teamwork. My badge still worked. I scanned out. Listened for the click. Pushed the door open. Stepped into the elevator alone. As the doors closed, I looked at my reflection. Older. Tired. But not afraid. I watched my own face and thought this was always the plan. Because in the end, I didn't need permission to leave. I didn't check my phone for hours after I left. I didn't want to. I went home, poured the last of the morning coffee into the sink, washed the mug twice just to have something to do with my hands. My wife didn't say anything when I came in. She just watched me. I hung my canvas bag on the same hook by the door. The bag felt strangely light now. 20 years of loyalty doesn't weigh much once you set it down. I took a long shower, let the hot water run until it steamed up the mirror. When I finally checked my phone, there were 9 missed calls from Victor, 2 voicemails, a handful of texts. "We need to talk. Don't do anything stupid. I'm trying to be reasonable here." I didn't reply. I spent the rest of the day going through my personal backups one last time, making sure everything was clean. Nothing they could call theft. No code from billable projects. No shared IP. Just my notes, my drafts, my math. It wasn't vindictive. It was insurance. I had no idea what Victor was saying inside that office, but I knew him well enough to guess. He'd minimize. He's burned out. He's always been moody. He'll be back. He'd reassure people. "It's fine. I'll cover the pitch. Don't worry about it." Because admitting he didn't understand the systems was unthinkable. But the problem was, the system didn't care about his ego. It just broke. Within a week, I heard from 3 people on my old team. Quiet messages. Polite. Almost apologetic. "Do you have any of the documentation for the optimization models Victor's asking for the latest pipeline map?" No one knows where it is. "Legal wants to know about Clause 7.4. Did you actually write that?" I answered them carefully. Politely. "I don't work there anymore. Company property is in the shared drive. Check the signed policy manual." I wasn't going to sabotage them. They weren't my enemy. They were just stuck, because Victor didn't keep records. He relied on me to remember. I watched it unravel in slow motion. The first client meeting after I left, Victor tried to present the Q2 pitch himself. Someone leaked a clip of the call. I didn't go looking for it. It found me. Victor in a suit that didn't fit quite right. Shuffling notes. Clearing his throat too often. "Our next-gen optimization approach is, well, it's proprietary, but very advanced." A pause. Client voice off screen. "Can you explain how it actually reduces complexity in real time?" Victor blinked. Mouth opening and closing. He gave them buzzwords. Adaptive. Hybrid. Intelligent. But no math. No architecture. No timeline. The client asked again. More pointed. Victor glanced off screen like someone might whisper the answer. No one did. The call ended early. They lost that contract. I didn't smile when I heard. Didn't toast to his downfall. I just sat there at my kitchen table, watching the light move across the floor. I traced a ring of condensation on the wood with my finger, because I knew the rest of it was inevitable. He could fake the confidence, but he couldn't fake the work. Systems don't care who's in charge. They only work if you understand them, and Victor never did. 2 weeks later, I got an email from legal. Polite, professional, but you could feel the panic. "We're reviewing company IP policies. Could you confirm your understanding of Clause 7.4? I sent them the original draft, my version history. The signed copies with Victor's signature. No commentary, no threats, just facts. Another week went by. Victor didn't call anymore. No texts. Silence. But the calls didn't stop. My old vendor contacts, consultants who remembered me, even a couple of junior devs who'd survived the last round of layoffs. They're saying you took everything. Victor's blaming you. Honestly, I don't believe it. I didn't tell them what to think. Didn't defend myself. Didn't need to. Because I knew what they'd see soon enough. The gaps. The failures. The empty folders where documentation should have been. And I knew they'd remember. Who used to stay late. Who used to write everything down. Who used to fix it when it broke. Because once the mask slipped, it didn't go back on. It took 3 weeks before he called me. 3 weeks of watching the machine grind itself apart. 3 weeks of polite HR emails, legal clarifications, and rumors swirling through the industry. I thought he might hold out longer. Pride's a stubborn thing. But the system doesn't wait for ego. The call came late on a Thursday. My phone buzzed while I was reading in my chair. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something in me wanted to hear it. I let it ring twice before picking up. Elliot. His voice cracked on the first syllable. No greeting. No pretense. Just my name. I didn't say anything. Let him fill the silence. It's Victor. He cleared his throat, trying to pull himself together. I need your help. I waited. Look, I know things got tense. But this isn't about that. This is about the company. About our people. I could hear the tremor in his voice, the manic edge of someone who's been faking confidence too long. They're expecting me to present at the quarterly review next week. The board, the investors. I need the model specs, the architecture, the data flow maps. I don't have them the way you did. He paused, waited for me to rescue him. I didn't. Elliot, please. I'm asking you, not as your boss, as someone who needs help. He still didn't get it. He still thought this was personal. Victor, I said, voice level, I don't work there anymore. Silence on the line. Just his breathing. I'll pay you. He said it too fast, too desperate. Consulting fees, double your old rate, whatever you want. Just help me fix this. He was bargaining with money again, because that was the only language he knew. I didn't answer right away. I wanted him to feel the weight of it. Victor, I said finally, you can't buy understanding. That's the problem. He exhaled sharply, almost a sob. I don't have time for this, Elliot. They're going to destroy me up there. I can't answer their questions. You know that. He was right. I did know that, because I'd watched him for years bluffing through Q&A with buzzwords, reading lines I wrote, repeating phrases I fed him. He'd never learned the work. Never wanted to. It's not just me, he tried again, voice cracking. The whole team's at risk. Layoffs. Contracts. We lose this round of funding and people get hurt. He finally went for the moral appeal. Good. He was running out of options. Don't make them pay for this. Don't punish them for my mistakes. I closed my eyes. Let him talk. Let the guilt roll over me and slide away. Because I wasn't punishing anyone. I was just refusing to lie for him anymore. You're asking me to stand behind you one more time, I said. To make you look like you understand. He didn't answer. But I heard the truth in his breathing. He was waiting for me to relent. Waiting for the old pattern to resume. I can't do that, I said softly. Not anymore. Elliot, please. My finger hovered over the end call button. I hesitated. Not because I pitied him, but because I wanted to remember this. This was the real Victor. Not the man in the tailored suit. Not the slick speaker at conferences. But the voice on the phone begging. He used to call me the backbone. Said it like a compliment. But you can't stand on someone who's no longer there. I'm sorry, Victor, I said at last. I really am. Then I hung up. I set the phone down on the table. Stared at it. Waited for it to buzz again. It didn't. Outside, the last light of the day was fading. Streetlights flicked on one by one. I sat there until it was dark, letting the silence fill the room. And I let the silence say what I wouldn't. I didn't hear from him again after that call. Not directly. But the silence didn't mean it was over. If anything, it meant the real fallout was finally starting. The industry is small. People talk. Vendors share stories. Clients compare notes. Within 2 weeks of that call, I was getting messages from people I hadn't spoken to in years. Old colleagues. Competitors. Consultants. Is it true you left Technova? Heard things are chaotic over there. Victor, okay? I didn't gossip. Didn't share anything. Just short, polite answers. Yes, I moved on. I'm not there anymore. Because I didn't need to spread it. It was spreading itself. I saw the first cracks in the press releases. Technova issued a short statement about leadership restructuring and refocusing on core competencies. No mention of my name. No mention of why they suddenly needed restructuring. Then came the industry blogs. Quiet at first. Speculative. But they noticed the shift in tone. Technova's Q2 presentation felt light on technical detail. Questions remain about the IP portfolio. Sources suggest major talent loss. The part that made me pause was the phrase talent loss. Because that was the first time in years anyone had called me that in public. Victor couldn't control the narrative anymore. He could still smile for photos. Still post leadership articles on LinkedIn. But the questions had started. And once they started, they didn't stop. Clients weren't stupid. They asked for roadmaps, technical deep dives, proof. And Victor didn't have it. Because I wasn't there to build it for him. I heard from one of the engineers still on the team. Quiet message at 11 p.m. He called a meeting today. Yelled at us. Said we weren't loyal enough. That we didn't appreciate how much he was carrying. I read that twice. Didn't reply. Didn't need to. Because I could see it all playing out. He was trying to keep the old pattern going. Him in charge. Everyone else bailing him out. But they weren't me. They didn't have my notes. My patience. My willingness to protect him from himself. Another week went by, and then the rumors about the board meeting hit the forums. Not official, but from someone who'd been in the room. He couldn't answer the questions. Stumbled on the IP status. Investors furious about lack of clarity. They asked about the patents. That one hit hard, because I knew exactly what that meant. Clause 7.4 wasn't a trap. It was a mirror, and it was finally being held up to him. I didn't celebrate, didn't pop champagne, didn't even smile. I just sat with it, listening to the quiet accusation of my own silence, because I remembered writing that clause. Late at night, legal pad, trying to make sure it was fair, that it protected both sides. Victor signed it without reading, trusted me to know what it said, and I did. It didn't give me his IP, didn't let me steal his work, it just let me keep mine. It wasn't theft, it was boundary. But he'd never respected boundaries. He'd called it loyalty when I stayed late, dedication when I skipped vacations, teamwork when I fixed things quietly behind the scenes. He never saw the difference between trust and dependence, between leadership and extraction. So when I left, there wasn't anything to hold him up. I heard they canceled his speaking slot at the fall conference. Didn't make a big deal of it publicly. Just quietly dropped his name from the site. Another friend sent me a screen cap of his LinkedIn post. Sometimes leadership is about knowing when to step back and let others shine. I read that 3 times, because I knew the real meaning. He was trying to pivot, trying to salvage reputation. But the comments told the story. Would love to hear more about your optimization approach. Any chance of a technical write-up, who on your team is leading these innovations? He didn't answer any of them. Silence is loud in public. By the end of that month, Technova's stock dipped. Not a crash, but a slow, uncomfortable slide. Investors don't like uncertainty. They like answers. Victor didn't have them. I never shared the final call with anyone. Never told them how his voice broke, how he begged, because that wasn't the point. It wasn't about humiliating him. It was about refusing to carry him anymore, because sometimes letting someone fall is the only honest thing left to do. 6 months later, I sat in my new office. A corner suite. Real windows this time with a view that went on for miles. Quantum dynamics had given me everything Victor wouldn't. Autonomy, resources, respect. My title said Chief Systems Architect, but what it really meant was, no one would ever mistake whose work it was again. My team was small, 12 engineers, handpicked, bright, curious, a little skeptical of me at first. But I welcomed that. I told them in the first meeting, if you don't challenge my assumptions, you're not doing your job. They laughed, because they thought I was joking. They don't anymore. We built our first prototype in 3 months, presented it to the board. It wasn't polished, wasn't even fully functional, but it was honest, transparent, ours, and they loved it. Not because it was perfect, but because they understood it, because they could see how it worked. No buzzwords, no earpieces, no memorized lines, just truth. I thought about that a lot in the quiet moments. How much of my career had been wasted explaining things to someone who didn't want to learn. How many hours I'd spent cleaning up mistakes that weren't mine. But I didn't hate him for it. Not anymore. I understood him. Victor wasn't malicious. He was afraid. Afraid of not knowing. Afraid of being seen. Afraid that if people realized he didn't understand, they wouldn't need him anymore. And in the end, that fear destroyed him more completely than I ever could have. Because fear's a terrible thing to lead with. It makes you demand loyalty you haven't earned. It makes you hide behind other people's work. It makes you forget that leadership is responsibility, not privilege. So I let go of hating him. Because I had better things to do. We were about to file the first patent in my own name. A real one. No shared credit for someone who couldn't explain the first line of code. Dr. Vasquez had insisted I review every clause in the IP agreement myself. No shortcuts, no assumptions. I did. Line by line, word by word. I initialed every page, signed my name with steady hands. Because I'd learned. I kept the old canvas bag in my new office. Same one I'd carried out of Technova that morning. A little more frayed, a little more worn. A reminder of how easy it is to give yourself away piece by piece until there's nothing left. But it also reminded me of something else. That you can choose when to stop. That you can say no. That boundaries are how you prove you're serious. My team doesn't call me the backbone. They don't need to. Because they know I'll be honest with them. And they're honest with me. We don't always agree. We argue. We challenge. We learn. That's what building something real looks like. It isn't comfortable. but it lasts. I looked out the window at the city, the lights blinking on one by one, patterns emerging, systems, connections. I thought about Victor. Wherever he was now, I hoped he'd learn something too, because everyone deserves the chance to do better, even him. But whether he did or not wasn't my responsibility anymore. I had my own work to do. If you've ever felt like someone depended on you to keep their secrets, to fix their messes, to make them look good while you stayed invisible, hit that subscribe button. I've been there too. Because the hardest lesson I learned is that you don't owe anyone your silence. Not your boss, not your company, not the people who only value you when you're carrying them. Your work, your mind, your name, those are yours. Don't let anyone take them without earning them.